Hey YouTube, RicoKnows here. Going to talk to you guys about the top cornerbacks in the 2024 NFL Draft. It's my top 10 list, but remember, my list is a little different from most people. I don't just do a top 10. It's actually a top 20 with some extra stipulations in here. So what I'm going to do is fill up the screen with it, and I'm going to roll it up so you guys can read it. And it's right here on the screen. You see it here. Just a reminder, this top section are RicoKnows draft picks. These are my favorite players in the draft at that particular position group. These are just guys that I'm cheering for, guys I believe in, guys that I think will make your team better. I am not trying to predict draft order, and I want to make this very clear. On this entire chart, I do not give a shit about when these people are drafted. I don't care how the NFL values them. It's what I value. It's my rankings. You're not going to see it anywhere on TV. You're not going to see anybody with my rankings because I don't look at mock drafts. I don't care what the NFL experts have to say. I don't care what scouts talk about. I don't care what you heard on ESPN from the Senior Bowl. All I know is the information you're getting is tainted. I know that it is heavily influenced by agents buying off TV personalities to say positive things about their players. I know it's heavily influenced by bias or conference association. I don't look at any of that. I sit down, I watch every single FBS level game every single year. I live stream as many as possible with all my followers. I probably live stream 4 games at a time. You can cut your TV into 4. Shout out to YouTube. I save every single game. I will go back and watch them in the off season. I do this for preparation for the transfer portal and gambling. I help out all the gamblers. Shout out to the MVPs. But when I assess players and I look at players, all I say to myself is that player is better than a particular player in the NFL. And once I identify a certain number of players better than those in the NFL, this is how I can tell you whether or not a player who went undrafted is going to make it as an undrafted free agent. Because I can just say, oh, he's better than someone on another team. And if you look at my chart from last year, let's look at this corners chart from last year. If you look at the top 10, not only did I get it right, Devin Witherspoon, Emmanuel Forbes, Christian Gonzalez, while everybody was gassing Gonzalez, Forbes was drafted ahead of him. Now, I wasn't trying to guess the draft order because I put Clark Phillips III way up here, and he's under 6 feet tall, so he was going to fall in the draft anyways. I didn't care. I'm letting you know that I love the way he plays. And you see the rest of the corners here and who I valued and thought highly of. But let's go back up here and let's look at these corners that were my favorite in the draft. And the third one, Starling Thomas V, did not get drafted out of UAB. I didn't care. He didn't get drafted. That didn't matter to me. I saw him on tape. I know what he is. Signs as an undrafted free agent with the Lions. Eventually makes the final 53. He's on the team, on the practice squad. What do you know? They finally release him. He's now a starting corner for the Cardinals. And this is just my ability to identify players that should be starting in the NFL. Players that can make your team better. Yes, I was the guy who went out and said Marty Mappel is the best safety in the draft. I know he's from the FCS level. I know. But I watched tape, and I loved the way he flowed to the ball, and New England agreed with me. You can look up here. You'll see best linebackers. Ivan Pace Jr., undrafted. He's up there on my list. I don't care what anybody says. I know players when I see them. I like what I see. Caleb Murphy right here. These are my super long shots. It says hidden gems. These are my deep hidden gems. I usually try to make this list FCS, group of 5, Division 2, Division 3. I try to dig really deep when I make this list. But I'm telling you right now, you start reading these names. Thomas Incoom made a roster. The third guy listed here went undrafted. Everybody's laughing at me. He made a roster. Keaton Mitchell, undrafted, made a roster. So I need people to understand that when I rank a guy, I just value him as a good football player. I think he's better than somebody in the NFL, and I think he can make a team. Now, I have no control over where they get drafted. I have no control over what depth chart they end up on or who they end up behind on the bench. None of that has any bearing on me. That's why I don't say whether or not a player is going to be a bust or succeed, because I have no clue where they're going. So when people come to me and say, Rico, how do you think Drake May is going to do in the NFL? I have no clue because I don't know what team he's on. I don't know what coach he's going to have or what scheme he's going to fall under. All right, but enough of that ranting. I just wanted to explain to you guys how I make my list. Now, the top 5 are my 5 favorite players in the draft, period. My 5 favorite players at that position group. The next 5 that you see here, the deep hidden gems, these are guys got a long road. Long shot to make a team, might not have the best metrics in the world, might be from an HBCU or an FCS, Division 2, Division 3. Last year, I accurately got a Division 3 player. Shout out to Baldwin. I got a Division 3 corner correct, saying he would make an NFL team, and he did. How about them apples? Made a video on it. It exists. You can go find it. Check the NFL Draft playlist. And then my top 10 corners for the NFL Draft are down here in the bottom. This is my official top 10 going into the draft, and I'll explain it. So let's start at the top, and we'll work our way down. If you see here, you will see Jarius Monroe is my number one corner in this draft that I like the most. I'm going to now shift over to the other page so you guys can see it. I'm sorry I don't have all my scenes set up, but here we go. Jarius Monroe is my number one corner that I like as far as RicoKnows draft picks. So who's Jarius Monroe? 6'2", 205. I like corners over 6 feet tall. I think they're they're just like draft gems. Teams are going to love the hell out of them because they can actually line up against an NFL wide receiver and play football. Now, Jarius Monroe, I started studying this secondary a couple years ago when they had Jaden Kennedy. He was a newcomer of the year type deal. Then he got hurt. He's actually now at Ole Miss. He transferred to Ole Miss. He's a fan of the channel. He reached out to me in DMs and asked me to assess him and kind of identify where I think he could go. And so I turned on the tape to look at him, and I was doing him a favor. I do this for a lot of the players. They asked me to go out and review them and see how well they would do at a certain echelon or on a certain team. And while I was looking at his tape, I was thoroughly impressed with number 2 on the tape. Thoroughly impressed. Jarius Monroe does everything right. He came over from Nicholls State, so this is an FCS transfer. Comes over from Nicholls, and you see it down here. No interceptions at Nicholls, really, and he's had 3 in back-to-back seasons. That doesn't move me, man. It's the size and the ability to find the ball. You see this pass is deflected. I'm going to tell you guys one really good key indicator for ball skills or just for breaking on the ball, working your way back to the quarterback, driving off your back foot. When I go watch film, I go and look for every single one of those passes deflected. I go watch every single game until I find them. It's not hard to find them. You just check box scores and then go find the film on it. Now, when I go back and watch these plays, thoroughly impressed the way Jarius Monroe covers ground, how he matches up with receivers, and he's a huge part of why Tulane has been so good for the last 2 years. I love everything about Jarius Monroe. I think he's an NFL corner. I think someone's going to draft him. And if they don't, I don't care. He'll make a team. Trust me. I really like Jarius Monroe. He's one of my favorite players to see on tape. He just has that it factor. Anytime I see double-digit passes deflected, I get really excited because that means you're all over it, man. You're getting it right. So, really good production. I like him. And you're going to notice the guys I like, very high production. The next corner I like in the draft, number 2, is Cooper DeJean. Now, Cooper DeJean, he's white. Don't adjust your contrast here. He is white. But he's also 6'1", 207. He's also got the ideal size of a corner. Okay, he also has the ideal speed. Remember, he's the punt returner. You'll see him in the screen down here, and he's returning a punt for a touchdown. Now, they called this one back due to not this one. They called another one back due to a ridiculous call. They said he fair caught one. He eventually broke his leg, though. He got injured this year, and he was out for the rest of the season. But when he's not injured and he plays a full season, you see that 5 interceptions back in 2022. He had 2 interceptions this year. This young man is a ball hawk. He finds the ball. He's enjoyable to watch. I'm rooting for him. The ultimate underdog, the ultimate local kid, success story. I'm with it. I'm with it all day. Shout out to Cooper DeJean. He's fun to watch. Very, very fun to watch. Here's a player most people don't talk about, and that's Elijah Jones. 6'2", 184. Once again, the right size, nice long length. Been playing a long time in college. You see all these productive years in college, and every single year was at Boston College. It's really impressive. Why that matters is Boston College former head coach is Phil Hafley. Jeff Hafley. Whoa, I said Phil. Jeff Hafley, former NFL defensive backs coach. So his defensive backs are highly valued and respected in the world of the NFL. And when you watch them, they just do a lot of NFL-like techniques. They understand schemes. They disguise coverages really well. He has a very high football IQ, and it pops on tape. Him and Josh DeBerry. Now, Josh DeBerry just transferred to the SEC last year. He transferred to Texas A&M. A little different. You get down to A&M, you're in a different scheme. Your coach gets fired halfway through the year. You start looking bad. But Josh DeBerry's not bad. Elijah Jones is extremely productive. I like everything about him. You can see it down here. What did I tell you guys? Double-digit passes deflected makes me really want to watch your tape. So having 13 back in 2022 and having 9 this year, but those 5 interceptions, guys. 5 interceptions, that's ball skills. There's guys who don't have 5 interceptions in their whole college career. Shout out to Lassiter from Georgia. I'm looking at tape on guys, and I'm just seeing nothing. No ball skills. Sure, they got fluid hips and they're backpedaling, they're doing things. I need turnovers out of you. I need production out of you. I need deflect some passes, get a tip drill going. There are some guys who are just allergic to the ball completely, and they're just fast. And I'm not impressed with that when I see somebody who can do all of it. I believe Elijah Jones was coached well. He'll be a late round draft pick. I don't care. I think he's an NFL football player. Don't you forget it. Micah Abraham. Yes, he's 5'11", 185. He's short. He's under 6 feet. That's the rule. You're under 6 feet, you're considered short. It's like a dating app, okay? It's like a dating app here. Micah Abraham, he's been at Marshall the whole time. Extremely productive. Last 2 years, he's had 10 interceptions. He's averaging 5 a year, 6 and 4. But those passes deflected for 3 years in a row now. 14, 10, and 15. And what matters to me is back in 2021 when I watched all his tape, those 14 passes deflected, I was like, man, he's batting down passes, but he's not getting these interceptions. Well, that all changed over the last 2 years. He went from patting down passes, mentally he locked in and said, man, I got to pick these off. I can remember I was in a passing league one time at San Diego State. We were doing 7-on-7, and I was so proud of myself. I was at safety, and I read the play, and I went and batted down this pass. And I spiked the ball. I mean, I batted it down. I spiked it. And I got off the field. My coach looked at me, and he said, Rico, what are you doing? You could have picked that off with 2 hands. You were there the whole time. Why are you batting it down? Pick it off and get a pick 6. And it just never dawned on me, why didn't I pick that off? Well, I think Micah Abraham had the same epiphany at that moment. And from then on, every time the ball was in the air, I was mentally telling myself, and I know you players can remember doing this. I know you can relate. You're mentally saying to yourself, catch this ball, fight for this ball. A receiver and a corner, when the ball's in the air, I am mentally telling myself, fight for this, like fight, you got this. And I just go get it. And I think when I watch the tape, Micah Abraham has that mentality. I'm going to get this ball. It's incredible. I just look at him. This is a kid from Florida. He's got Florida speed. I like Micah Abraham. They're probably going to wait to draft him until the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round because he's under 6 feet tall. You're making a mistake if you wait. This kid's better than somebody on your team right now. NFL teams, he's better than the people on your roster. Real talk. All right, don't tell me NFL coaches don't watch my videos. The Packers and the Patriots scouting department watch my videos. They drafted every single player I told them to. Real talk. Shout out to them. Same with Tampa Bay. The last guy I'm going to talk about is Beanie Bishop. Now, you guys know I don't like 1 year of production guys. He is my final, when I say the last guy, he is my 5th favorite corner in the draft. He's my final one in the RicoKnows draft picks. I pick 5 guys that are highly productive, got the right skill and metrics, and then as it gets lower and lower and lower, I understand NFL teams will be like, well, this guy's 5'10", 184. Why do we want him? Well, let me tell you why we want him. He was in a secondary with some stud defenders. Anthony Wilson just transferred in from Georgia Southern. Everybody's talking about this revamped defense at West Virginia, and you get a guy coming from Minnesota, right? He spent 4 years at Western Kentucky, then went to Minnesota to prove that he could play at the Power 5 level. And after that 1 year at Minnesota, you see it. No interceptions. No one's really believing in me. I used to get interceptions, but I got nothing going on here. No passes deflected, nothing going on. This past year, man, you turn on the tape, you see a totally different person. Shout out to Neil Brown and his staff. Shout out to whatever they're doing at West Virginia to make amazing defensive backs. But Beanie Bishop played out of his mind. And Beanie Bishop had 20 passes deflected. Guys, that's an unheard of number. He led the entire country with 20 passes deflected. He's touching everything, bro. You get lucky to get 10. You're solid if you get 8 to 12 a year. You're lucky to get 10. 20 is insane. I thought it was a typo. I had to go back and watch all the film. I'm like, oh my goodness. 20 passes deflected in the Big 12? Do I need to go down the list of quarterbacks this man faced last year? Solid quarterbacks? It's great stuff. Shout out to Beanie Bishop. He is small and undersized, but I like him. I hope he fights for a roster spot. Probably going undrafted. Probably, but I don't care. I like him. Now, my deep long shots. Before we get to the actual top 10, my deep long shots are here just to remind you who they are on the list. You got Quantez Stiggers. I'm going to talk about him. Reedy Stewart, DeCorian Patterson, Miles Jones, and Joshua Hayward. So let's go talk about it. if you haven't heard about Quantez Stiggers, I'm probably going to make a video on him on TikTok. But Quantez Stiggers is the young man who did not play college football, and he's about to get drafted. So that's why he's getting ready to make NFL history. This young man did not play college football. He signed with an HBCU coming out of high school. The season gets canceled due to COVID. Then his father, unfortunately, passes away. He drops out of school, doesn't play anymore, because why play if the person you were playing for never comes to the games anymore, right? Then eventually his mother talks him into it, and he gets back on the field, goes back and plays. He ends up in the CFL, ends up in the fan-controlled football league in 12 games. I think he might have had 5 interceptions in 12 games, led the league, or 7 interceptions. Just a really good player. Ended up in the Shrine Bowl. People are excited for him. I think he's a deep long shot to make it in the NFL. I hope it happens, because that'd be really cool. Shout out to Quantez Stiggers. You hear about NBA players making it in the league, getting drafted because they didn't play college. They went and did some other thing, played in a rec league or overseas or G League, things like that. So this one will be the first case, the second case really, of somebody getting drafted who didn't play college football. Congratulations. I hope it happens. Reedy Stewart. Been at Troy for a while. Reedy Stewart, if you watch Troy's defense, this man sticks out on tape, pops on tape. Local kid from Alabama. And he's only 5'11", 178. This is why he's a deep long shot to make it. But my goodness, does he find the ball. 7 interceptions in the last 2 years. Double-digit passes deflected the last 2 years. Just very productive, shutting people down. Troy's defense was really good. With the exception of their K-State game, I was impressed with Troy's defense when I watched it on tape. Went back and watched the whole season, just the defensive side of the ball. It's pretty fast when you're just looking at defense. You just watch that side, watch it at 2.0 speed, playback speed on YouTube, and you're straight. And you're watching these plays, and you're looking, and Reedy Stewart is a ball hawk. He finds the ball. Good player. Like him. He'll compete for a spot. We'll see what happens. Next guy, DeCorian Patterson, 6 foot, 193. This final year killed him. This is why he's a super long shot. It killed him that he transferred to UCF and could not play the same or could not duplicate his results from the previous year. Remember, he was at Middle Tennessee State for 5 years, and Middle Tennessee State's defense was so good at creating turnovers, they were forcing fumbles everywhere. They were leading the country in interceptions, and DeCorian Patterson was a huge part of that reason. He had 7 interceptions back in 2022. And then he goes to UCF this year, no interceptions, 2 passes deflected, just a role player. Not that good. And it's unfortunate. And it's why I'm very hesitant to anoint certain players. And you're going to hear my top 10 coming up, and everybody's talking about Mitchell from Toledo. And I watch a lot of Group of 5 football. And I'm an advocate for Group of 5 football guys all day long. But I also know there's a significant talent gap in defensive backs and wide receivers at the Group of 5 level versus the Power 5. Now, everybody's going to tell you, no, the real difference is linemen in the trenches. But I'm going to tell you there are some playmakers that you cannot find at the Group of 5 level. It's the reality, right? You're going to practice every day. You're probably the best player there. Nobody's beating you at practice. No one's beating you in the games because you're playing the MAC. Well, this is what happens here for DeCorian Patterson. He's dominating at Middle Tennessee State. Everything looks great, and then you get down to UCF. They go to the Big 12, and all of a sudden he's just an average-ass dude. So he's a long shot to make it in the NFL. Put him on the list. I hope he can regain his form. Miles Jones, speaking of regaining his form, what a great segue. Miles Jones is a 6'4 corner, not a 6'4 safety, 6'4", 194-pound corner. Okay, so he's a huge corner. You think he'd be great, and he used to be great. You see these passes deflected here? 8, 9, and 6, and 5. All his first years, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. All at Texas A&M, dominating in a Mike Elko defense, looking the part, doing everything right. He's not a big ball hawk. He's not picking off a bunch of passes, but he's 6'4", 194. He's up for the task, man. So he transfers to Duke this year, 7 tackles. 2 interceptions. He's got injury problems. He's got a history of injury, but I put him on the list because he's a super long shot, and I'm pulling for him. And I know teams value his size. I think we're going to see him in the UFL. I think we're going to see him in the spring and not really see him do much in the NFL. But that's what I do on my list. So be it. Last guy I'm going to talk about for that 5 super long shot is actually Joshua Hayward here. There are no stats for him. I couldn't find him on the internet, but I know that he played well. I know he's 6'2", 200 pounds, and I know that he's a really good player. Okay, so when you go try to find tape on him, I was like, man, where did he go? What's his school? Benedict College here. I went and looked. I'm looking everywhere. I'm searching for tape, and as soon as I found his highlights, I said, oh, this is a good kid. There's another kickoff returner I wanted to pick as well. I usually try to pick somebody way down the list, somebody nobody's talking about. This is a stab in the dark, and I hope he makes it. I looked at him, and I thought, this is a good kid. So just remember the name, Joshua Hayward. If he makes the final 53, we did our job. It's tough, but I usually get it right, so we'll see what happens. Now, we'll look at the top 10. I'll bring up the list one more time so you guys can see it while I'm talking about these guys. Here we go. My top 10, Terrion Arnold, number 1. Quinyon Mitchell, number 2. Kool-Aid McKinstry, number 3. Nate Wiggins, 4. Josh Newton, 5. Jarris Monroe, I already talked about him up here, 6. Cooper DeJean, 7. Elijah Jones, 8. Micah Abraham, 9. And then you see it, Kyrie Jackson at 10. And I'll break it all down for you guys as we move forward. First and foremost, Terrion Arnold. Starting corner at Alabama. I believe if you're the starting corner at Alabama for 2 years in a row and you declare for the draft early, I believe you're an elite prospect. I go watch the tape. Terrion Arnold is great. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds, does everything right, looks the part, finds the ball, 8 and 12 passes deflected. It's just remarkable what this young man can do. This is Caleb Downs, but at the corner position. Just showed up and started playing great football. 5 interceptions, showed up and just started dominating. I loved it. I love it. I love it. Okay, the 8 and 12, 8 as a freshman, 8 passes deflected as a freshman. If I can explain this to you guys, it's just unheard of. Okay, and then you see the 12 the next year, and you're like, man, it's not a fluke. Tackles going up. Turn on the tape. He's everywhere. I will not put anyone ahead of him. Terrion Arnold is my number 1 corner. Period. Quinyon Mitchell's number 2. A lot of people are gassing him because of the Senior Bowl practices. He looks great. He does. Go turn on the tape at Toledo, though. Yes, last 2 years, 19 and 18 passes deflected. 5 interceptions 2 years ago. This last year, only 1 interception. I was not encouraged by his play this year. I was very underwhelmed by his play this year. Do you see this right here? This was my number 1 dude in the world for a long time. I'm a group of 5 guy. I advocate for all the group of 5 players. Quinyon Mitchell was my guy coming out of last year. And then I watched Toledo play every single week. Ask the MVPs. We bet on these. We bet against them or for them every single week. And I'm just like, my goodness. He's not getting to the ball. He's not coming down with that interception. I need him to make a play. So he's a good player. He's got the right size. I've got him number 2 on the list. There's no wrong answer here. What people will do, I got to shut that because that'll give me a violation, a copyright violation. What people will do is they'll freak out that I don't have him number 1, and they'll say I'm all wrong and Rico doesn't know. Dude, 1 spot on the chart doesn't make or break me because I don't care where people get drafted. I'm just telling you how good I think they are. Kool-Aid McKinstry, a lot of people know him because of his name. I know him because of his game. I ain't worried about his name. He also doubles as a punt returner. He's a great special teams player, and you see it down here. Only 2 interceptions in his career. I don't care. This man's been starting for a couple years now, and he had 15 passes deflected 2 years ago, 7 this last year. I really like his style of play. When I watch him on tape, him and Arnold, they just pop, man. Alabama had 2 of the best corners in the whole damn country. Point blank, period. There's no other way to hide it, deny it, or talk about it. That's what it is. Now, Nate Wiggins is number 4 on my list. And a lot of this doesn't have anything to do with production. If you go look, his interceptions aren't there. Yes, he had 11 passes deflected back in 2022. But Nate Wiggins is the right metrics. He's 6'2", 185. He's long-limbed, fluid, turns his hips well, gets out of his back pedal, reads defenses. I think he's everything, bro. I don't care what's going on. He's great. And his IQ is off the charts. This arguably could be one of the number 1 guys if he just had more production, right? In comparison to the guys above him, they all got a lot of production. He has the metrics that you really like, okay? Josh Newton's the one guy on the list that people are going to argue with and say he's not all that good. I'm going to tell you he is. I watched a lot of tape of him. Josh Newton at TCU 2 years ago, you see him. He's a transfer from ULM. So he comes in from ULM, and he balls out of control. 12 passes deflected 2 years ago, go on their way to the national championship game. Yeah. Paired up with the Jim Thorpe Award winner in the same secondary, and he is just as good, if not better. It just shows on tape. Josh Newton knows how to play. So going into this season, they were kind of weary and didn't throw his way. He only had one interception. They didn't really attack him the same way, but he's still a force. I think it's that whole don't attack that side of the field. We'll go somewhere else. So anytime you look at the tape, number 2, we're not throwing it that way. That's exactly what happened this year for TCU. And teams were able to run the ball on TCU. Their defensive line was trash. Running a 3-3-5 defense left a lot of things to desire. But Josh Newton is still him. I really like him. And it's one of those things where no one's going to agree with me, but I don't care. That's where I'm putting him. Okay. And then the last guy on my top 10 list is Kyrie Jackson. Now, I want to say this. Total asterisk by Kyrie Jackson. First and foremost, I think Kyrie Jackson is a substandard person for your locker room. I have maybe four ex-teammates of his in my DMs telling me this guy got kicked out of 4 schools. Got kicked out of 3 JUCOs, and obviously got kicked out of Alabama. If you didn't know, he used to play at Alabama, got kicked out of Alabama, got kicked out of 3 JUCOs. One of them he got kicked out before ever playing in a game. So there's character concerns. Off the charts character concerns. I would not draft this young man. No, I wouldn't put an investment in him like that because you're about to pay him real money. And there's real consequences if he doesn't come through, and your job's on the line. I would not draft him. All that to tell you he's great. He's 6'3", 195 pounds, and can really play some football. Turn on the tape. Go watch Oregon. It's impressive. He's just better than you think. He's better than other players. He can compete with anyone. He's bigger, faster, stronger. There's a reason he was at Alabama to begin with. All right, so Kyrie Jackson, I believe, NFL teams are going to do their homework. They're going to sit on the fence, and they're not going to want to draft him early. But it's going to be a game of chicken. Which team is willing to take a chance on this guy, knowing full well he's better than the people on your team? NFL teams are notorious for this. They think they can draft anybody and give them the right structure and environment, and they won't get in trouble. Hell, he just kept his nose clean for an entire fall while at Oregon, right? At least as far as we know. But there's very real concern flipping over every stone when it comes to the NFL. You know, there was a corner last year. What was his name? The kid from Oregon State. Right. Didn't get drafted. I believed in him. Rajon Wright. But they said, hey, Rico, there's baggage. There's baggage. We're probably not going to draft him. I was talking to an NFL scout about it, and he gave me this. Let me see where it's at. He gave me this rubric. He gave me a rubric on how they evaluate draft picks, and it's on my other monitor. And I apologize, I can't find it because all my icons went. Oh, there it is. So he gave me this rubric. I'm going to bring it into the screen here of how we assess players in the NFL draft. And one thing he talked about was what you won't see on here is, this is the offensive rubric, by the way. What you won't see on here is the character concerns, the interviews, the background check, the arrest record check, right? But you can see where they identify someone as, if you're identified as a developmental player or a good quality backup, what metrics you are. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, when I look at somebody like Kyrie Jackson, he's up here. He's a high-end 3-down starter. So he's anywhere from 9.0 to 7.0 on this metric, on this graphic that they provided to me. So there are NFL teams and college teams, but really NFL teams. They hire third-party scouting departments, companies, to perform all the grades, the draft grades for them. And then they provide that data to their departments. So you can go hire a third-party company to do it for you. And I talked to the scouts that work for those departments. They reached out to me. And just said, hey, Rico, do you have any information about the following people? Because I keep track of their careers. I've known these players since they were in high school, things of that nature. So, hey, do you remember this kid? How was he in high school? Was there any character concerns? Did he transfer schools? Did he do this? Did he do that? So these guys reached out to me, and it was pretty cool. Our interaction was great. So I look forward to every NFL draft. I look forward to contributing and helping with the community. But what I want people to understand is my rankings are slightly different from anything you're going to find online, because I am not doing draft grades. I'm not doing mock drafts. I'm not predicting the draft. I don't care what 32 different GMs are going to do that day or those 3 days. I am simply identifying the players I like, the players I believe in, and that's how you see the chart. Thanks for your time, guys. Thanks for being here. That's 30 minutes of cornerbacks. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.